Elias stood at the edge of the royal balcony, his eyes scanning the endless horizon of the alien city below. Towers of shining crystal pierced the sky, and energy vehicles zipped between them like silver fish in a glowing river. The sun of this far-off planet painted everything in gold and violet. But Elias barely noticed. His attention was on the palace, on the princess. He had been assigned as a personal guard to Princess Lyra of the Valar Dominion, a species known across the galaxy for their beauty, intelligence, and deadly skill. Humans were rare here, often seen as fragile or reckless. Yet Elias had proven himself during a mission on the border worlds. Now, his vigilance was needed inside the palace itself, guarding a princess whose life was more valuable than a starship. Lyra moved through the palace halls with an effortless grace, unaware of the human watching her. She was not tall, but her presence commanded attention. Her skin shimmered slightly under the lights, a natural bioluminescence common among her kind. Her eyes, violet and sharp, seemed to see everything, and yet nothing at all. Elias had learned early that she was cautious and independent. Most humans might have been intimidated, but he simply reminded himself why he was there. Duty, focus, alertness. The palace was alive with activity that morning. Servants carried trays of exotic foods, nobles whispered in the corridors, and robotic sentries glided silently above, scanning for threats. Elias noted every detail: the placement of guards, the angles of cameras, the subtle tension in the voices of the court officials. He saw the first hint of danger when a shadow moved against the sunlight. A small, unmarked drone hovered near one of the windows overlooking the princess's chambers. Most of the palace security had not noticed it, but Elias had. "Not today," he muttered, adjusting the human-made weapon strapped to his arm. A pulse emitter, simple but effective, ready to disable any small device. He stepped lightly across the balcony, unseen by all but the drone. With a precise flick of his wrist, he activated the emitter. The drone shuddered, sparks flew, and it fell from the sky, crashing in a heap below. No alarm sounded. No one seemed to notice. But Elias knew he had prevented a reconnaissance attempt, one that could have led to something far worse. Later that day, Lyra entered the balcony, carrying a small data orb. She paused, noticing the human who had been watching her silently. "You are always watching," she said softly, almost amused. "I do," Elias replied evenly, keeping his gaze steady. "But I also notice what others miss. It is my duty to protect you, Princess." Lyra tilted her head, studying him. "You are different from the others. They rely on technology, protocols, guards. But you," she gestured at him, "you see." Elias allowed a faint smile. "Sometimes, seeing is enough." She walked closer, the faint glow of her skin illuminating his features. "I suppose it is," she said, then turned and disappeared back into the palace halls. Elias's eyes followed her, not with desire, but with focus. She was his responsibility, and he would not fail. 2 days later, the threat became real. The palace was hosting a diplomatic gathering with several alien factions. The grand hall was filled with nobles wearing elaborate attire, energy-emblazoned jewelry, and ceremonial weapons. Elias stayed close to the princess, keeping a careful watch over every movement. It was during a toast, when all attention was distracted, that he noticed it. A guard on the far side of the hall, carrying a ceremonial blade, shifted slightly. His movements were not those of a loyal protector but of someone positioning for an attack. Elias moved, silently threading through the crowd with human agility and balance. Humans were not as strong as the Valar, but their flexibility and ingenuity gave them an edge in ways the aliens did not expect. Before the guard could reach the princess, Elias intercepted, grabbing the blade mid-air and twisting with controlled force. The would-be attacker stumbled backward, wide-eyed, then bolted into the crowd. Gasps echoed through the hall. The alien guards froze, unsure how a human had detected and stopped a threat that had evaded them. Lyra's eyes were wide, her expression unreadable at first. Then, she looked at Elias, and a faint smile touched her lips. "You saved me," she whispered later, when the crowd had dispersed. "I suppose I should thank you. Properly." "Duty, Princess," Elias replied simply. "No thanks are needed, but I will continue to watch. Always." That night, Elias returned to his quarters, reviewing every detail of the day. Who had sent the guard? Was it an isolated incident, or part of a larger plot? He could not guess. He only knew one thing. Princess Lyra's life depended on his vigilance, and he would not fail her. As he prepared for rest, he felt a faint pang of something unfamiliar. The respect in her eyes, the acknowledgement of his skills. It was not friendship. Not yet. But it was a recognition that humans, despite their physical weakness, could make a difference in this alien world. The following morning, Elias noticed Lyra waiting near a quiet garden corridor. She held a small orb in her hands, scanning it nervously. "You are always so quiet," she said. "Do you ever speak unless necessary?" "I speak when it is required," Elias replied. "And right now, I see that something worries you." She hesitated, then nodded. "I am to attend a private council meeting with some of the older nobles. They do not trust outsiders. Not even my guards. They certainly do not trust humans. I have dot. I have dot. Quote. I have dot. 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 I will accompany you," Elias said. "You will have nothing to fear." When they entered the council chamber, the alien nobles looked at him with thinly veiled disdain. Whispers filled the room, but Elias ignored them, focusing entirely on the princess. The meeting began, full of tension and political maneuvering. The nobles questioned alliances, trade agreements, and military strategies. Every now and then, someone would cast a suspicious glance at Elias. He did not flinch. He was a human, yes, but one who had learned quickly to think faster, adapt, and act decisively. During the meeting, a sudden energy surge knocked out the chamber's lights. Panic rose among the council. In the darkness, Elias moved, locating the source. A tiny device attached to one of the structural beams. He disarmed it with a pulse of his emitter. The lights returned. Shocked gasps filled the room again. The nobles looked at him with awe, fear, and a hint of respect. Lyra's eyes shone with approval. "You are remarkable," she whispered once the meeting ended. "No one else here would have noticed that." "That. I only do what is necessary," Elias said, "to protect you." That night, as the twin moons rose over the palace, Elias stood watch on the balcony. Below him, the city shimmered with lights and life. The palace had seen threats before, and it would see them again. But now, one human stood vigilant, seeing what others could not, protecting what others could not. And somewhere deep within him, Elias knew that this duty was more than orders. It was a choice, a promise, a commitment that no danger, no plot, no alien treachery could break. He would stand watch for the princess, always. And perhaps, one day, the galaxy would learn what humans could do when they refused to yield. The sun rose over the palace again, painting the alien city in gold and violet. From his vantage point on the balcony, Elias observed the bustling streets below. Even after days in the palace, he still noticed details that escaped everyone else. He had learned quickly that survival here was about observation, calculation, and action. Princess Lyra appeared in the corridor below, gliding toward him with a quiet urgency. Unlike the other nobles, she moved freely, unburdened by ceremony or fear. Yet Elias knew every step she took was measured, a dance of awareness and caution. "You are early," he said, stepping aside to let her pass. Lyra glanced at him, eyes narrowing slightly. "I have matters to attend," she said softly. "But I wanted to speak with you first." Alone. Elias followed her into a small garden within the palace, a hidden space of flowers and soft, glowing plants that humans rarely appreciated. The fragrance was unfamiliar, sweet and tangy, but it was a quiet place where words could be spoken safely. "You saw what happened yesterday," Lyra said, her voice low. "The council. They do not trust me completely. They do not trust outsiders, and certainly not you." "I am aware," Elias replied. "But trust is earned, not given. My job is not to be trusted. It is to keep you safe, no matter what the council thinks." Lyra looked at him closely. "And yet, you do more than that. You anticipate. You see things before they happen. It is unlike anything my guards can do." "I have trained," Elias said simply, "and I am human. Humans survive by observing, adapting, and acting when necessary. Sometimes it gives an advantage." She studied him for a long moment, then said, almost in a whisper, "I am glad you are here." Elias nodded. He could sense that she meant more than just duty. Humans were good at reading intent, even when it was subtle, even when it was alien. The next day, the palace came under a true test. Word had reached Lyra that a rebel faction opposed to the royal family had infiltrated the city. The palace would be the first target. Elias did not panic. Humans might be physically weaker than the Valar, but their minds worked in ways aliens often overlooked. He began by quietly assessing entrances, guard rotations, and weak points in the palace defenses. He noted patterns when guards were distracted, which doors were lightly monitored, and which shadows could hide intruders. Lyra approached him as he completed his observations. "What do you plan?" she asked. "We will use misdirection," Elias said. "The rebels expect force, noise, and panic. We will use patience, speed, and surprise. I will cover your routes. You remain safe." Lyra raised an eyebrow. "You make it sound easy." "It is not easy," Elias replied. "But humans find ways. Always." Hours later, the attack began. Shadows slipped through service corridors and ventilation shafts, aiming to reach the throne chamber. At first, the palace guards did not notice. They were trained for open combat, not stealth. Elias, however, moved like a shadow himself, intercepting small groups silently, disabling them with clever traps and human ingenuity. Lyra watched in amazement. She had been trained to handle diplomacy, not defense, but with Elias. She felt secure. He did not merely react. He anticipated. When one intruder tried to cut the security grid, Elias disabled it remotely, turning the palace's own systems against the attackers. By the time the main force of rebels reached the Grand Hall, Elias had already neutralized key threats, guiding Lyra safely behind armored doors. The Valar guards finally realized the situation and fought back, but it was Elias's foresight and human cunning that kept Lyra alive. After the last intruder was subdued, Lyra approached Elias. You are remarkable. I have never seen anyone act like that." "I only do what is necessary," he said. "Humans survive because we must. That is all." She nodded, understanding more than words could say. In that moment, she realized humans were not weak, not inferior. They were capable of heroism, courage, and brilliance that even the strongest aliens might underestimate. In the days that followed, Elias and Lyra spent more time together. She began to teach him about Valar customs, their subtle body language, and the nuances of court etiquette. He listened carefully, adapting quickly, learning to move and speak in ways that did not draw suspicion. "You learn fast," Lyra said one afternoon, watching him mimic a graceful gesture of greeting. "Faster than most of my own guards." 8. Observation, repetition, adaptation, Elias replied. Human skills. You will see many more humans, who are strong in other ways, princess. Some who fight, some who think, some who lead. All survive by adapting. Lyra laughed softly. Perhaps, one day, the galaxy will see your kind differently. Perhaps, Elias said, though he did not hope for it. He had learned that survival was more important than recognition. But her words lingered in his mind. One evening, as twin moons rose over the palace, Lyra brought Elias to the palace armory. She had a small practice blade in her hands. Let us see your skill, she said. Not for combat, just for understanding each other. Movement, timing, reflex. Elias accepted the challenge. Though human, he had trained for years in combat, survival, and adaptability. He moved fluidly, matching her strikes and anticipating her subtle feints. Lyra's eyes widened. Even though he was not as strong as she was, his speed, awareness, and anticipation made him a match. You are unlike anyone I have ever met, she said, breathing lightly. Strong, clever, fearless, and yet, human. I only survive, Elias said. I do not seek to impress. I seek only to protect. But you do impress, Lyra said softly. Even me. It was not flattery. She meant it. Elias could see it in her eyes. There was respect, trust, and something deeper. A recognition of courage and dedication that transcended species. Later, a messenger arrived with news. The rebel faction was not gone. They had retreated, but would regroup, stronger and more dangerous. The palace would need to prepare. Lyra turned to Elias. They will come again. Are you ready? I am always ready, he said. For you, princess, for this palace, for what must be done. She studied him, then nodded. I am glad you are here. I do not think I could face what is coming without you. Elias felt a strange warmth at her words. He had been trained to protect, to observe, to act. But recognition, gratitude, and trust, these were alien rewards. And yet they grounded him. They reminded him that humans, even in a galaxy full of stronger, faster, more powerful species, could make a difference. As night fell, the palace settled into an uneasy quiet. Guards patrolled, sensors scanned, and Elias remained vigilant. As always, from his post on the balcony, he saw Lyra walking below, her silhouette bathed in moonlight. She paused, looking up at him. You are watching me, she said, a hint of amusement in her voice. I am always watching, Elias replied. It is my duty, and it is my choice. She smiled faintly, a small but genuine gesture. Then, do not falter. I rely on you, more than you know. Elias did not speak. He only nodded, his gaze fixed on the horizon. Humans had a reputation for persistence, for courage, for ingenuity. And now, in the heart of an alien palace, he had a chance to show it, to protect, to survive, and perhaps to earn a place in a galaxy that had not yet recognized the strength of humanity. Somewhere in the shadows, the rebels regrouped. But Elias was ready, and with him standing watch, Princess Lyra would remain safe. For the first time, he felt something deeper than duty, a bond. Not romantic, not yet, but trust, loyalty, and a connection between human and alien that no threat could sever. And that bond, Elias knew, would be tested soon.